Welcome to another episode of In Devotion and Creation with Alyssa. I have a very, very special guest today with me in Austin, Texas, the beloved city that raised me from ages 23 to 30. And this tea company and tea house, West China Tea Company, is part of the lore. It's part of the lore.
You're part of our lore as well.
Yes.
Yeah, you're definitely part of the tea house lore.
Oh, I feel so honored. So this is Sohan, and Sohan is the owner,
Founder. I like to say founder.
Founder. I love it. Founder. He's a founder.
Yeah.
Of West China Tea Company, and one of the most beautiful things that I have experienced in my life, truly, just culturally and in terms of beautiful ways to connect with people socially, not to mention beautiful ways to enjoy tea, is the art of Gong Fu Cha. And this is the tea practice that Sohan introduced me to when I discovered him at an event that I performed poetry at. I was performing outside on this stage at this event 2014, spring 2014, and I walked into an indoor space and I saw him serving tea, and it was one of those moments where I knew that my life was forever changed.
Whoa.
Yeah. And here we are over 10 years later.
That's crazy.
I know. And they're in a brand new, beautiful location on East 7th Street in Austin, Texas. Like, please go visit this place. And yeah, you'll understand why I fell in love with it. So, I would love, Sohan, for you to share a little bit about just yourself and, what this tea journey has been for you.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, I'm the founder of West China Tea. I started this company 12 years ago, and it has been my whole deal that whole time, pretty much, besides having a family. Yeah, it's my whole deal. And it came about because I really love this practice, Gong Fu Cha. It's not any particular thing. It's the sum, as you know, it's the sum of the tools and the techniques and the philosophy and the culture and the traditions around making tea in Chinese culture, making loose leaf tea and making a concentrated full-bodied infusion. In order to accomplish that, they have evolved this style of tea service using these small vessels and small cups like this one, and all this cute stuff like the tea pets and everything else. And it's this daily practice. It's something people do all the time. It's wholesome. It's a family-friendly practice. China is a very family-oriented society. You have multi-generational households. The grandparents are there. The kids are there. They do drink alcohol, but the family drinks tea together. That's what the family does, because the kids aren't drinking alcohol, right? And some other members of the family might not be drinking alcohol, but everyone can drink tea. And you just have in the southeast of China, where this originates, it's in every household, every storefront, every coffee, whatever bookstore, hardware store, whatever business there is, they'll have a tea table and they'll just serve you tea. It's not part of the business. They're just drinking tea, and you can drink tea with them. And of course, tea shops and everything. But also, me and Mary Cotterman, who one time, you know Mary, right?
Yes.
You know Mary, of course you know Mary.
Yep.
Yeah, Mary Cotterman, our dear friend Mary Cotterman, one time we were in Chaozhou and we were walking down this, which is where this is from, right? This is all over China now, but it's really from the southeast of China. We don't really know how old it is. It's probably like a couple hundred years old, 400, 500 years old. We think it goes back to the Ming Dynasty, because that's when we see the first Gong Fu style teapots start appearing. But essentially what it is taking a high dosage of tea, steeping it in a small vessel, using a small amount of water because the vessel's small, steeping it quickly and steeping it many times. Because in order to get the full character of the tea, you have to have a high dosage. You have to get that high dosage. You can think of it like espresso versus brewed coffee, right? A brewed coffee is big, it's dilute, it's automatic. It doesn't take a lot of skill. You're just putting the coffee in the filter and you're pushing the button, and then it does it by itself. That's like big tea, like a English tea or a Chinese restaurant, you know, where the water and the tea are sitting there and the tea is getting stronger. I pour a cup for you and I pour a cup for me, and our tea is different. We're not getting the same concentration of tea. It might over steep and be bitter. I might pour you a cup after refilling it and it's weak. But we're not all getting the same thing. We're not experiencing the same thing. And we're not getting a concentrated, carefully focused version of that thing. We're getting a kind of uncontrolled, just, you know, chill version of that thing. There's nothing wrong with steeping tea that way. In tea circles, we call that grandpa style. But yeah, but this style allows us to have control the way that a barista has control over coffee when they're making espresso. And you don't use your really nice expensive coffee in a Mr. Coffee machine. You make espresso with it, or you do pour over, which is also similar to this.
Beautiful.
And so we're making a concentrated infusion with this high dosage of tea. Because it's a high dosage, we have to steep the tea quickly because it will get bitter quickly. It'll over steep quickly. So we're not steeping for 2 to 5 minutes. We're steeping for a few seconds at a time.
Right.
And we are controlling the temperature of the water, and we're not using boiling water on every single tea, although I'm going to use boiling water on this tea. You requested something grounding, and I wanted you to try something you hadn't had yet, so I'm going to make some tea resin, which I realize is not as photogenic as actual tea, but we're not getting close-ups anyways. These little gold nuggets, I'm going to talk loud because I'm reboiling my water. These little gold nuggets, if you can see them, are little tablets of resin, which is obtained by taking tea, boiling it, straining the tea leaves away from the tea, and then boiling down the liquid tea and reducing it until it doesn't have any water left in it, or very little water left in it, and then you get this like paste. That's the Chinese name is cha gao, tea paste.
Wow.
And people call it tea resin, they call it tea hash. It's a lot like, you know, those things, and it looks like this. And this is from some shu pu'er. You said you wanted shu pu'er. You wanted some grounding, earthy shu pu'er. And so here we are with a very concentrated form here.
So this is a new experience for me.
This is new for you. And I'm going to do 2 of them because that's how I like to do it.
Yeah,
but one is enough. One is enough, but we're going to do a strong pot of tea.
All right. I'm here for it. So I oh my gosh, there's just so much, as you can already tell, about this tea practice and this man's passion for tea, and it's just been so inspiring for me. But something that you just said, Sohan, I love, you know, getting the taste of coffee, like really getting the taste of coffee through espresso versus the diluted form, which is kind of American, like typical American way of drinking coffee. And that was something that really surprised me, like wildly so, when I first started engaging with this practice, was just how much I was able to appreciate the different flavors of tea, the way that the flavor profile changes over time, because you're not just steeping like in the sort of typical Western style of enjoying tea, a small amount of tea and a large amount of water. This is a large amount of tea and a small amount of water that you're continuously steeping. So it goes for anywhere from like 8 to 10 rounds generally. And the flavor changes over time as the leaves open.
That's right.
And it's just like in the way that people who drink wine, who really take wine seriously, really notice the way that the flavor profile opens and changes. But like tea is a gentle beverage. You are not going to be unable to drive home afterward. You're probably not going to make horrible decisions afterward.
No guarantee,
no
but
guarantee.
If you do, it won't be because of the tea.
Right, exactly. So I love one of the reasons I've loved this practice so much is the very tactile, very sensually alive nature of simply learning to slow down and enjoy the tea. Even the way it smells, enjoying the way the different tea varieties look
and taste and
it's
and the way they feel, you know, as well. That's I think that it's hard to convey to someone who hears the word tea and they're thinking of tea bags, they're thinking of, you know, tea with flavorings, chai, you know, Earl Grey, things like that, which there's nothing wrong with those things. They're great. But the tea is not the star of the show with those. With chai, the spices are the star of the show. The tea is a base. And you're not really tasting the tea with masala chai, with the spice chai. Obviously chai, Indians drink just plain tea also, lots of it. And then Earl Grey is scented with bergamot, right? It's scented with this citrus. And so when you drink Earl Grey, yes, you're tasting tea, but what's the star of the show is this bergamot. And in China, there are so many different kinds of tea, whereas in the West, we really mostly just have black tea, which is known as red tea in Chinese, Hong Cha, which is fully oxidized tea. And then sometimes we encounter green tea in the context of East Asian culture. Usually we encounter green tea. And then occasionally people have had experience with oolong or even white tea. More rarely, they'll have had white tea. Mm-hmm. But there's also hei cha, the fermented teas like we're drinking. There's also yellow tea, which is very rare, but we carry it here. And it's one of the 6 categories of tea. And so just like there's red wine and white wine, you have 6 different kinds of tea. And within that, each of those categories have hundreds and hundreds of examples, thousands, maybe tens of thousands, depending. Green tea, I'm sure there are hundreds of thousands of individual green teas being grown at different farms throughout China, for sure. Because China is huge, and there's a huge amount of China where you can grow tea. All over the south, that high altitude, which is a lot of China, you can grow tea, and you have these very small producers making tea. And so the landscape of it is really interesting because all of these different teas that will be, hundreds of thousands of different teas out there. And it's like this whole landscape, and the way that we navigate that landscape is through this practice. This is the tools and the techniques that we use to explore that, because when you're exploring something like wine or whiskey, you, the user, don't have to unlock the character of the wine. And I know you have to let wine breathe and aerate it, and so I understand about that, so don't come at me about that. I understand you have to do that. But my point is that the impact that the person serving the tea has on whether the tea is good or bad is much, much greater than the impact of the person serving the wine on how good the wine is, or whiskey.
Yeah, great point.
Coffee is similar, because it does matter how you make the coffee, but whiskey or wine or beer or anything like that, the producer has done all the work. Yeah. The end user doesn't have to do anything. But this tool set, this skill set, allows us to make the most out of these teas, to bring out the notes, the complexities of these teas that make them so valuable, and that would otherwise be lost in a larger format or a less controlled format of steeping.
You know what I'm hearing in what you're saying, and what I've also, of course, noticed in this practice over the years, is the level of presence that's required, actually, in paying attention to the care with which you are tending to the tea. And that's a perfect segue into really kind of unpacking next, like, tea culture, because this is what was so life-changing for me, honestly. I had my first sort of really major commitment to sobriety a month before this tea practice came into my life. And when I started showing up at the tea spot behind Spider House. Yep. That used to be an old juice land, right? It was like we were a little tea table in the center of this small room surrounded
under
by
a tattoo parlor.
Yeah. It was so what an era. Oh
what an era. I'm so glad you were there for that. That was a really special. They don't do it like that anymore. Not in Austin anyway. Yeah, it's not like that anymore.
Oh man. Oh, thank you. Let's get some of this.
This is that resin. Hope you like it. I'm really into it lately. It's also a little more caramely than just regular pu'er.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is fermented tea, and it's the fermented tea resin, which is a concentrate that you make by taking the liquid tea, boiling it down, and getting this paste like we talked about earlier. And so I put those 2 tablets that I discussed earlier in here, and they are sitting in there, and I'm pouring hot water on them, and they're steeping, and then they're dissolving. Normally that would be tea leaves, right? I'm just doing resin because it's exotic and new, and I wanted you to try something new, and I wanted to drink it. But normally it would be tea leaves.
Out here right now.
Exactly. Normally it would be loose leaf tea leaves, either loose or pressed into a cake, like a little cake like this, or like broken off of a larger cake, or just normal loose leaf tea. It comes in a lot of different forms. But this is kind of what this would normally look like, and we're going to do it many times. And I think that watching and seeing this, it's like, that's cool. I'm glad you can make tea good, but what's so life-changing about it. And,
Yeah.
I think that's the exciting part. You said 2 weeks in your sobriety?
It was a month into my sobriety, and then I came across you, and I just started showing up to the tea spot and drinking tea with you all, and we would literally sit and have hours and hours of conversation. And it was the first time that I really encountered anything like that. And it just has stuck with me ever since. And it's something that as I've, traveled and moved to New York City, I've shared with other people, and people almost always have this kind of like light bulb moment of like, wow, this is actually new. In American culture, we just don't have something like this. And I love that you're seeding it and that it's just continued to grow. So one of the things that really struck my heart when I started showing up to the tea table was the way that like everyone from any walk of life could show up to just enjoy tea. And I'll never forget hearing someone say that they struggle with social anxiety, but when they show up to the tea table, they feel like they can be a part of something and not feel the pressure to speak, but they still feel like they're a participant. And that's part of the beauty of the tea, is you're literally just sitting and enjoying this experience together, and the conversation will flow, and like and people can partake as much as they want, or sit back and just be.
Yeah.
That's
unusual.
Yes.
That last part is especially unusual, and I think that there's a couple reasons I think it works this way. It's the vibe you get from drinking tea is a lot more similar to like hookah or people sitting around like smoking a bong in college. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like that kind of, because it's this communal. We're not just consuming stuff together. I don't have my drink and you have your drink, or like sharing a pitcher of beer, or sitting around and sharing something, sharing a meal even, because we're all sharing the same thing. We're all participating in the same thing. We're all consuming the same thing. I don't have a latte and you've got a cappuccino, and I can walk away from the table with my cappuccino. We both have to sit here and be served, because we only have 3 sips in this cup, and we drink the 3 sips, and we got to sit there and we got to be in each other's presence.
Yes.
And it becomes this long format thing. You can't do that for coffee with coffee for hours. Normal people, maybe some people can, but literally sit and just drink coffee, different varieties of coffee for hours and hours. That's just not, healthy for most people or feasible for most people because of the caffeine, because of the effect on your stomach, etc. But tea is supportive of digestion in a lot of teas, especially fermented teas like this. And also just tea, it's not alcohol, it's not coffee. It's much more gentle than both of those.
Right.
And it's good for you in a way that alcohol definitely isn't. Coffee definitely has some health benefits, but there's also certain risks associated with like stomach stuff usually, and adrenal stuff. But tea is rare among things that are luxuries that are enjoyable in being good for you as well. Most of the things that we recreationally enjoy are neutral at best. Usually they're bad for us.
Yeah, wow. There is something that feels so luxurious and even indulgent, right? And to your point, it's such a gentle experience, and it's one that is actually quite easily accessible. And that's something else that I just love about this tea culture, and what I've witnessed with West China Tea Company is the just wide array of humans who show up.
Oh yeah.
Like it's like a sitcom.
It really is. Yeah, it is so funny and so serendipitous and so unusual and interesting. And I think that's my favorite part of the tea house, is just how authentically people show up. That's what that really is.
Yeah.
It's not that some special subpopulation of people is coming here.
Yeah.
It's that people come here and they express themselves in a vulnerable and authentic way, and that's when their uniqueness comes out, because they don't feel like they need to conform to some kind of cultural norm that forms is the gate, that is gate kept around, because everyone can drink tea. Not everyone can drink alcohol, right? People who are in recovery, or Muslims, right? observant Muslims or observant Buddhists or children, people who have to drive. There's lots of people who can't drink alcohol. So you can't make an inclusive table serving alcohol. You can't make an inclusive table serving food, right? Because some people are vegan and some people are carnivores.
Right.
Some people are halal, some people are kosher, some people are, raw foodists. And so you cannot serve a meal and have it be inclusive unless you do a huge meal that includes every possible kind of dietary restriction, food. And that would also not be inclusive because there's people who wouldn't sit down at the table if there was pork at it, probably. So anyways, I'm kind of dragging on with this point, but tea it's accessible and it's inclusive, which I find really, for me, that is our first of our core values is inclusivity. Yeah, is inclusivity.
Wow. Yeah, I think that's one of the qualities that people, whether they realize it or not, that people continue to be drawn to here and surprised by. I guess I'm curious about that. First of all, I love this man's devotion to tea culture and to the tea house. This is, my podcast is called In Devotion and Creation, and it's this, sitting inside of the question of like, what are we devoted to and what are we creating? And I guess that's a question I have for you is like, how would you describe your devotion to this? Like, why? What drives you?
Right, the spiritual question. Yeah. That's like the most important question. And what drives me? Part of this feels like I am being driven by it in a lot of ways. I said that especially in the first couple years when we were doing this, I would say I feel like it's just this, I'm just like this big fast horse and I'm just trying to hold on to it. You know what I mean? Like the tea house is this thing. It's like this big wave that rose up under me and I'm just trying to ride it. My devotion to it is because I genuinely believe that it makes the world a better place because it connects people. It connects people to themselves because it is this deep spiritual meditative practice that when you practice it alone and you're by yourself and it's just you and the tea, you are communing with the plant, you're communicating with the plant, you're learning from the plant, you're learning about a plant, you are connecting with yourself because of the demand or the invitation, rather. It's not a demand. Tea invites you to be present. It does not punish you, except for the tea is bitter. That's how it punishes you for not being present, right? It's a mild punishment. It's not like ayahuasca where you could literally go crazy, and just like lose your mind if you don't respect ayahuasca. But if you get cold bitter tea, that's the worst thing that's going to happen to you. With tea, you're not gonna lose your mind. You're not gonna have an episode, and it helps connect people to nature because it is a plant and because we're drinking the tea and you're tasting the season, you're tasting the weather, you're tasting the soil, you're tasting the water, you're tasting the sunlight, you're tasting the character of the people who produce the tea, their chi. And it also connects us to each other because of the way that it forms this social environment where you can, in an inclusive, healthy way, connect deeply with people, vulnerably with people, because of the way that it makes us feel, the drug effect of tea, and also because of the way that it pins us into place in this very inviting, very welcoming, kind of a very equitable, egalitarian social environment where, you have a tea server and they are in service. They are the leader of the thing that's going on, but they are also in service to the people who are there. They're not. That's why I'm not called a tea master. We don't call the people who serve here tea masters. We call them tea servers because their job is to serve. But they are the authority. It's not like being a server at a restaurant. You're in charge of what's going on, but you're there to serve. And I think, and people come, they buy tea sets from us. They take our classes. They learn how to serve tea for the privilege of being able to serve other people. You don't buy a tea set just to make tea by yourself. I mean, you can, but you don't need a whole tea set. You could just drink it out of a mug, But if, this practice is optimized for serving, tea is better when it's shared. And that's the really joyful part of it in connecting with other people, and that creates community, is that shared aspect.
Yes, tea is better when it's shared. I gotta tell you, I have a dream that I have a dream for a tea house in New York City where this culture is, you know, really present and alive. I feel shocked. Actually, I've been shocked for a really long time that I haven't quite found a place with the sort of thriving tea culture that exists here in West China Tea Company. I'm curious, what have you witnessed in terms of tea culture? Because you are in connection with a lot of people around the world who are involved in this practice. So what have you witnessed in the last decade in terms of how this growing and more cities, more people from more cities sort of seeding tea culture?
Absolutely.
What has that been like?
Absolutely. There's been a lot. I haven't gotten the opportunity to travel recently as much as I used to. And so I haven't been able to see around America what's going on with it. I do know that online, a lot more people are becoming aware of it. So the overall audience is growing. It's hard to keep a tea house open, and there's lots of pitfalls, right? There's lots of pitfalls. Just to name a few, like one big pitfall is trying to be too elaborate with the food you serve. We don't serve food here. We have chocolate that you can buy a chocolate bar and eat it with your tea. Right now, that's as elaborate of a thing as we have. And that's not because we don't like the idea of food with tea. It's because when the food becomes the focus, then tea becomes a beverage, and it's no longer a tea house. It's a restaurant with a tea theme. And it's a hard city to compete in the restaurant business in Austin. It always has been. And it's not getting any easier because we have it's a very good dining city, and restaurants are hard to run. And I don't know how to run one. I have no experience with that. But and the problem is that a lot of people who have the vision to start a tea house and they start serving food, and it turns out my food's my best selling thing. Yeah. Well, that's not a surprise because people already know about food. They don't know about tea. They go into a place and they see a bunch of stuff and they're like, oh, I don't know what all these Chinese words mean, but let me get a bun. Let me get a baozi, and I'll get a cup of whatever you recommend. And I'm not really going to focus on the tea. That's my beverage. I'm just going to really focus on the food. How's the food, right? And that's one big pitfall. And another one is focusing on scented teas, flavored teas, bubble tea, things like that. We don't give people the option to dilute their experience. We don't have sugar that you can add to your tea. It's not an option. You cannot. We do have honey sticks for when you get hypoglycemic. They're not for your tea. We're not going to yell at you if you do it, but people don't. It's not the done thing. Right. So we do have honey sticks, but they're not for putting in your tea. We don't sweeten our tea here. We don't give you the option to sweeten your tea. You cannot sweeten your tea for $5, right? There is no. Yeah. We're not here to make money from your desire to sweeten your tea. We're here for you to taste the tea unsweetened. You can buy it and go home and sweeten it there. We're not mad at you for it, but we don't. And one of these big dilutions is, Americans don't understand tea, but they like roses. So we'll sell tea with a bunch of roses, a bunch of fragrances. We sell rose tea here, right? Nothing wrong with roses. We love tea with roses. But my point is that there's a lot of tea products out there in America that cater to the Western palate by being flavored. Scented with flowers or fruit at best, or at worst, sprayed with artificial or natural flavorings, right? Something that sugar, fake sugar, etc., all kinds of things going on out there. And when you go to a tea shop and they are not a small tea shop like us, they're not a direct importer like us. They're selling papaya. They've got 200 different kinds of tea, but it's a papaya green tea and guava green tea and macadamia nut green tea and hibiscus green tea, and it's all these different flavored versions of tea. And here we just have a bunch of different kinds of green tea with no flavorings in them. Yes. And that's a hard sell because you make this potpourri tea and people smell it and they immediately buy it, but they are not becoming tea connoisseurs. They are going to keep buying that product probably, but they are not learning about tea. They might not understand what tea is. Yes. They think tea is just any plant steeped in hot water. They don't realize it's the name of a particular plant. And so that's a pitfall because you're shortchanging the community and yourself in the long run because you're not going to be building a community of knowledgeable, discriminating consumers who have a passion and a hobby and lifestyle that involves tea. And that's one of the reasons that tea houses have a lot of trouble staying open, is that they give people too many off ramps to dilute their experience away from what's authentic.
Yes. Oh, wow. Tell them. Tell them. Yes, I love this because you have created a truly pristine space through which people actually get to know and enjoy tea. I love what you said, and I will tell you right now, the amount of people that I have encountered in my life that have only heard of black tea or green tea.
Yep.
They don't know about pu'er. You know, they don't know that there's so many different varieties of green tea, of black tea, or red tea, right?
Yep.
And not only that, but don't know that different teas are supposed to be heated at different temperatures. So people who, for example, make green tea, so many green teas need to be steeped at a much lower temperature than boiling, and so many people drink green tea and think that it's bitter, like
that's right,
and they don't actually get to taste the flavor of the tea.
Right.
It just, you know, it's not like there's anything wrong with this, it's just that there's a lack of knowledge, and what you offer here is the knowledge of tea.
And a big part of that is that tea culture is not from the West, and it wasn't colonized. Chinese tea culture was not colonized by the West. Indian tea culture was. Indian tea culture is a product of colonialism, right? The British planted tea in India. They did not drink and grow tea in India before the British planted tea in India. After stealing it from China. It was proprietary to China. It was an ancient Chinese secret, along with silk and porcelain. Nobody knew how to make those three things, and they were very expensive. And the Chinese could make them, and they dominated this luxury good, this global ancient luxury good Silk Road trade with these luxury goods that they made out of worms and leaves and earth, taking things that are in fact not precious metals or precious gems, things that are not rare, that can be renewed, that are renewable, that can be mined or that can be grown, and being able to turn them into highly sought-after luxury goods. Every Roman emperor wore robes made of silk. Not one ancient Roman ever knew what silk was made from, right? They had to buy it from the Chinese because they did not know what it was or how to make it. It was a technological proprietary secret of the Chinese, along with porcelain, which was superior to all other ceramics in strength and lightness and clarity and beauty and smoothness and durability. And also, silk, porcelain, and then tea, which is literally a leaf that grows on plants. You pick it. It's not even a fruit, right? It's the leaves. It's you're not a part of the plant we usually consider that valuable, but it is, in fact, very, very valuable. And people have fought wars over it. And that's multiple wars. Multiple wars have been fought over tea, or involving tea. And the British eventually managed to steal the secrets of tea, literally by sending in an industrial spy. His name was Robert Fortune, and he smuggled tea plants and tea seeds and tea seedlings and tea growing manuals and tea processing equipment, etc., and Buddhist monks who are good at growing tea because they grow tea at their monasteries, because tea is an important part of Buddhist practice in China. Right. So he smuggled these things and people out of China under pain of death. If he got caught, they would have killed him.
Wow.
Under pain of death, dressed as a Mongolian envoy. And I don't think he knew Chinese. I don't know how he did it, but he was Scottish and he did it. And he smuggled them out of China into British India, and they tried to plant them in India, and they did not take exactly that well, and they made a hybrid for the purpose of the colonial tea project, of growing British imperial tea for the empire, the British Empire. And that's called Camellia sinensis variety assamica. They hybridized wild Indian tea plants and then cultivated Chinese tea plants. And so that particular branch of tea culture is very colonized. Chinese tea culture was never colonized. Coffee was colonized. Chocolate was colonized. Tobacco was colonized. Those things are no longer in the hands of the people to whom they belong. If it was, Ethiopians would dominate the coffee industry. Mexicans would dominate the chocolate industry. Native Americans would dominate the tobacco industry.
Yeah.
But that's not how it is. Europeans and Americans dominate those, Anglo-Americans. And so tea, because all those things have been subsumed into the greater fold of Western luxury commodity culture. They are all treated the same way. They all have their own flavor wheel, right? They all have their own sommelier programs. Whiskey, wine, coffee, beer, right? You can become a sommelier in those things. And they're all approached from the idea of, what does it taste like? What does it smell like? What does it look like? The senses. And tea culture, Chinese tea culture, is less about the senses. The taste in the tea, the smell of the tea are important, but what's really important about the tea is how it makes you feel, which is true also of wine and whiskey. If a sommelier will never talk about the way that a wine makes them feel. It's not part of their description. It's not part of the discourse, right? They'll talk about the smell and the taste and the color, clarity, etc., and what it was made from, etc. All this intellectual stuff and seated in the five senses. But they don't talk about how the wine makes them feel. And two wines with the same ABV do make you feel different. They have their own chi, is what we would say. Two liquors with the same ABV do make you feel different. But it's not part of the discourse. And it's also noteworthy that if wine didn't make you feel the way it makes you feel, nobody would care about it, and there would be no wine culture. So it's interesting. The reason that wine culture exists is because it makes you feel a particular way, but it's not part of the discourse. But with Chinese tea culture, same with coffee, same with beer, same with whiskey, same with tobacco even. Cannabis culture is different. In cannabis culture, there is an emphasis on how you feel. How you feel is first, how it tastes and smells is second.
Cacao too, separate from chocolate.
Yes,
like commercial chocolate.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now with like the modern, cacao culture that has come about with cacao ceremonies and stuff, we do have that emphasis on that with cacao.
But I love what you said about that the again this sort of purity that Chinese tea culture still has. And actually, I would love to hear you share. This is another reason why I love these teas and Sohan's passion for this and commitment. All the teas that you source, you have a direct relationship with the farmers.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear you speak a little bit about that, like how you, just tending those relationships over the years. If I'm recalling correctly, it was was it 2000, early teens that you really...
2010 is when I moved to China.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, moved to China in 2010.
And that's when you began to really kind of connect with tea more deeply and meet farmers?
I was already into tea. I definitely connected with it more deeply. I was already as into tea then as I am now, reasonably, insofar as I had been working in the industry. I'd been doing Gong Fu Cha, this practice, for 7 years as my main social outlet already.
Wow.
And I'd spent a year working at Jade Leaves Tea House, where I helped build out and run their Gong Fu Cha program, which they didn't have before. And so I went into it with many years of experience and passion under my belt. And absolutely, my knowledge then was just like a grain of sand compared to what I discovered living there for any amount of time. And I still, when I go there, every time I go there, I learn so much that I didn't know. And I feel the expansiveness of the culture is just really remarkable. But I met some of them, including this guy, Li Shulin, who makes this tea, when I was living there. And then other ones I have met on specific sourcing trips that I go on after, year after year after I moved back, started the company. From 2013 to 2019, I would go on a trip every year, sometimes twice a year. And then 2019 was the last time I went. Then COVID, then I had a child, and then I got to go this past spring.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, and see these people I have not seen in very, very long time.
Wow.
Yeah.
What is it like connecting with the farmers directly? I mean, I can imagine that these are people who have tended their farms for potentially generations. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so there's so much like care, and it's just in their blood and their ancestry at this point, right? To tend to this beautiful plant.
Yeah.
What is that like interacting with them?
They're all different.
Yeah.
They're all different. They're all unique. They all do have so much respect for the plant and so much genuine love and this almost like childlike joy and curiosity and enthusiasm about tea. They are excited by my enthusiasm about tea. Yeah. They feel very validated and happy to see a foreigner excited about tea, and I show them pictures of the tea house, and they see all these non-Chinese people drinking tea here, all these young people, you know, and it's not we're not only young people, but there's a lot of young people.
Yes.
And seeing these young people, after thinking, you know, them growing up in the 80s and 90s or older, depending on how old they are, they did not think that people outside of China would care. They thought of tea as like a dying industry, because it was at that time, and it is revived. And you know, a lot of them were like, I'm the last generation. I'm going to be the last one to make tea, because I don't want my kids to live this life. I don't want my kids to be poor, trying to struggle being a tea farmer, making tea. I want them to go to the city and work in a factory and like make money.
Wow.
Right? But now the appreciation for tea culture is increasing in China a lot. A lot, and the youth participation is increasing a lot, and it really has usurped wine culture as the luxury pastime of the middle class, which was they were trying to. When I moved there, Chinese people really wanted to be into wine. They really wanted to like wine. They wanted to understand wine, drink wine, and there was a lot of association of wine with like the ultimate symbol of luxury and modernity, and you know. This newest administration has a lot more investment in traditional Chinese culture and a lot less looking to the West as a model, and a lot more of trying to find, you know, ways of leaning into Chinese ways of being. And a big part of that is that this tea culture is now so ubiquitous. It is a regional style of tea culture from the Southeast, but it is now expanded so that it is inevitable that in China you will end up encountering this in some capacity just going around, and that was not always the case.
Oh, so cool. Wow, there's so many different directions we could still go with this, but we're going to begin winding the conversation down. I'm sure there will be another one at some point. Something I remember you saying is you called the tea plant a feminine plant. I was curious if you could speak about why you sense that, if that's still true for you.
It is.
Yeah. What can you say some words about that?
It's hard to articulate. It's just the way that it feels. I mean, tobacco, for example, feels like a masculine plant, and coffee feels like a masculine plant, and they're very kind of fiery and hard, and tea is subtle and gentle and like nurturing, healthy, and in the way that cannabis is a feminine plant. You know, we associate cannabis with being feminine because the type of cannabis that people use is the female plant. Tea is not a dioecious plant. Tea plants are neither male nor they're both male. They have both male and female parts, like a lot of plants do. They're monoecious plants. But the way that tea presents spiritually to me is feminine, and I'm not saying that is a deeply held belief of Chinese people in general. They are not out there gendering tea in the same way. And if they do, it might vary from person to person how they consider it. But that has been my emergent felt understanding of tea in my relationship to it. And there's a lot of, it's gentle. You're not boiling it, you're steeping it. There's just so much gentility and subtlety and precision and mindfulness that it demands, and again, it doesn't demand of you. It really requests. It invites your presence. It doesn't demand it, and that's I think why I've felt that way, and I say that, and it's very kind of abstract, really. It's more of a sort of somatic feeling than it is a thought.
Yeah. I feel that. Oh man, I am just overjoyed to be with you again. It's been several years, and I am so delighted to see this tea house. This is, when did it officially open, this tea house on 7th Street?
May. We opened this one in May. We were at I-35 for 7 years. After we were at Spider House, we were on I-35, the freeway, on the side of the freeway for 7 years. We've been here since May. Yes. And we're open 6 days a week to the general public, and then on Monday today we are closed except for WTF night, Women, Trans, and Femme night, which is about to begin
Yes.
shortly, which is why we have to cut the podcast short. But that's about to start because I have to leave.
Yeah. Oh, bless you. Yeah. So, West China Tea Company, East 7th Street in Austin. You can also order products online.
WestChinaTea.com.
Yes. And you can learn also how to serve Gong Fu Cha
That's
style
right.
tea.
Yeah, we have classes online. We also have our YouTube, Tea House Ghost, that's got lots and lots, like 20 something hours of free content, maybe more. We won Best Tea YouTuber at the World Tea Expo a couple years ago. That was great. Went to Las Vegas to pick up the award. Also, Instagram, West China Tea on Instagram, West China Tea on TikTok.
Yay!
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sohan.
Thank you,
It's been
Alyssa.
such a pleasure.
Good to see you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're so welcome. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I hope you can feel the joy that tea brings to both of us, and may you share in that joy. Blessings.